So even I'm not sure why this happens, but when it comes to groups for activities, I am always, it seems, put into some of the very strangest groups you could ever be put into. Now you may be saying, oh no, you know, it happens to people all the time, like it's just a circumstance thing, like you go in enough groups and yeah, some of them will be crazy, but let me tell you that after becoming part of the University of Arizona, this has happened way too many times in quick succession to be just mere coincidence. I think it's like a curse that I have, or a blessing, or whatever you want to call it, that whenever we happen to be doing something in a group project, I'm always going to be put with that one group that's going to give me the most interesting story to tell. And those stories, you can bet I am going to milk for a video. So the very first group that I got put into when I got to the University of Arizona was my group for this Cambium activity. And it was just this like low ropes course. And to get into this group, we were numbered off, right? We all got into a line randomly, and then they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. And so we were all like put in random groups, not with the people that were next to us. But wouldn't you know it, about 6 of our group members out of like 8 or 9 happened to be roommates and people that knew each other very, very well. And these were all very hyper guys that had tons of energy, tons of group spirit, and the very first thing we did was try to come up with a group name. And this did not go very well, so we just ended up being Group 4. Now this is very important because this meant that whenever something good happened or something bad happened, they would always be like, come on Group 4, we got this! We're Group 4, we can do anything, everything's possible with Group 4! And you could just see the energy leaping off of them and into everywhere else, and every other group could hear us. Whenever we finished one of our things, they could always hear us being like, Group 4, let's go! And so we did the first activity, and it was pretty simple. It was like getting water from point A to point B. Everyone has to hold a piece of pipe to get it down, you know? And we completed this activity. We were given, I think it was 20 minutes to do it. We completed it in like 7-ish. It did not take very long at all for our group to finish this. So we were like, yeah, we're the best group ever. And then we did a part 2 to that activity because we were so good, and then we finished that, and it was like, wow, we are just the most amazing group there is. No one can even get too close to our level. And we go on to the next activity, and the next activity is like bringing this pipe thing full of water either over or under this bar, and you have to go the other way. So if the pipe thing goes under, you have to go over. And so we were like, okay, the easier one is going to be to bring it over and to go under, because that's easy for pretty much everyone. So we go ahead, we go through, we do it, and then we're like, okay, we've got a lot of time left. Let's do it again, but the other way. And so we go all the way through, back over, and we succeeded that too. And it's like, wow, there is honestly no better group than Group 4. And at this point, we're like, okay, we need a chant. And I'm like, hey, what if we do a count of 3, but the last one is 4? And they're like, I love that. And so our chant becomes 4 on 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is just the silliest chant that I've ever come up with. But apparently they liked it. And so we go to the next activity, which is crossing a river. And most people cross this river with these like blocks that you get. And you're supposed to like all have to go on the blocks and go across in one trip. So you get the idea that it's like you have to fit 4 or 5 people on each block. Which just reminds me, the actual number of people we had in our group was 13. I'm not sure why that eluded me for a while, but now it's come back. We had exactly 13 people, and that was very important because there were 4 blocks, so that meant we had to get about 3 people on each block, and then one with another one. But the thing was, one of the rules was that if you put the block down and you didn't put your hand on it, and like you took your hand off or a body part off of the block for 2 seconds, the evil river spirit would take it away. And so we were all like strategizing, like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get like 3 people. It's gonna be great. And then someone forgets to keep their self on the block, and we lose one. And all of a sudden it goes from being a manageable task to something that's just not possible. At least not possible in the way that we think it's not possible. And so we start strategizing more things. We're like, okay, what if we did piggyback rides? Like, what if we had 2 people but in the area of 1? And so we start like executing this idea. The few girls, like one of the girls does a piggyback ride with one of the guys, and then 2 of the guys do a piggyback ride, and you've got all this chaos going on, and then we start trying to do it, and the guy that's overseeing the task is just like, you know, on second thought, this isn't such a great idea. And we're like, oh, come on, it's our piggyback ride. And so he ends up pitying us enough that the angry river spirit, who apparently has pity, gives us back our block that it stole from us, and we're just getting ready to finally execute a successful plan when our time is up. And for Group 4, this was devastating. It was the absolute worst part of our day. We were so down, but everyone was just like, man, we let that guy down. We really let that angry river spirit down. It just, it hurts so bad. And so we move on to the next activity. And at the end of each activity, we go through the rest of them and we do them really well. But at the end, they always ask something like, oh, what was your like favorite activity? What was your like least favorite? And you would always hear Group 4 being like, ah, man, we really let him down, you know, like we were right there and we just let him down. And so it just became this joke that even when all of the groups got back together and they were like, oh, what was the hardest activity? We brought it up even then. And then at that last activity, this is where you know that you had a weird group, because we were mentioned as the group with the most team spirit and there were no other awards given. It was just this one mention, like one of the people said, man, you know, I really admired Team 4's team spirit. And then, of course, you know what has to happen when we're called out in a public meeting. We all put our hands in and we go, 1, 2, 3, 4! And everyone just looks at us like, what is wrong with you? And we're just like, I don't know. And so these guys have become kind of the masters of the floor. Like, you see them everywhere and they know everybody and they're super popular. And it's just kind of weird because it's like Group 4 is known for being the group with like all the cool kids, but then there's also me. So it's a very interesting dynamic that we've had. And one more group dynamic that I'm gonna put in this video. I'll probably have another group video because these happen so often to me. It's such a weird thing. But the other one I want to talk about is the physics discussion group I was put into. And now, this might not seem like it would be that interesting. Like, oh, come on, like, why would I care about who you're solving physics problems with? That's not, who cares about that? But the thing is, the person, it's not even just the group, it's the specific person I was put into this group with happened to be my workout instructor. And my group also happened to be filled with seniors. So we were a group of 3 seniors and 1 freshman. And this group, unlike Group 4, was not super rowdy or full of team spirit. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It was it was a very interesting group because me and my workout instructor had this dynamic because I was like, okay, I have been pretty much failing her class for these 2 sessions that we've had, because we've only had 2 sessions. So I am now going to prove to her that I am smart and I am capable and I can do stuff too. And so we get the worksheets and we start working on it, and I do well for the first questions. I'm like, okay guys, it's this and you can explain it like this, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, I got it. And then all of a sudden my workout instructor's just like, oh, and then she just whips out the rest of the worksheet, and she's just going at this like lightning speed, just writing everything, and we're all just like, what are you doing? And she'll like pause for a second to like kind of explain what she's doing, but then she'll just keep on going at this like lightning speed, which makes sense because you're trying to finish on time, otherwise you will get docked points, which I think is stupid. But she's just going, and we're just sitting here like, I'm half understanding everything. The other 2 people across the table look completely lost. They're like, I don't know what's going on. And so I'm desperately trying to relay the information from my workout instructor and what her ramblings are all about to the people that are seniors and have been in college for so much longer than me. And I'm just desperately trying to be this like helpful link. And we're just constantly calling over the TAs that are like walking around. She would, whenever she finished a problem or whenever she got even the tiniest bit stuck, her hand would shoot up and she'd be like, hey, what exactly am I doing with this, or what am I doing wrong? And it was like, we had a TA at that table, I think, for about 75% of the time, whereas everyone else had him for like 20% of the time. And it got to the point where the TAs were like, oh, it's you again. After about half the session. And so we eventually get to the point where even I have given up on trying to completely write out every step of every problem. Specifically, there was this one problem that was like super long. It was the second to last problem, and you had to do all of these like little convoluted steps. Like one thing you had to do was use the I'm forgetting the name of the theorem right now. The negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That thing that I can't remember the name of, but I remember the formula. But you had to use that in order to solve the problem because it was so complicated. And so she finishes, I try to go through it, I get the wrong answer, I'm like, okay. And then they're like, alright, you just need to turn in one of your papers. And I think at that point, every one of us just looked at my workout instructor and was like, alright, it's your paper. And we all were just like, well, that was physics, that was cool. I guess I learned something, maybe. But it was definitely an interesting experience, being on the other side of that not knowing thing, because I have so often been in one of those positions where I'm the one that's like going fast and going back to explain. And it was a very humbling experience, but also a very, very, very bizarre one to be trying to like almost prove yourself and then find that you are completely not worthy, so to speak. So a good humbling experience created from a very weird group that was again chosen by randomness. These groups were chosen by when you walked in the door you would get a number, and that number would decide which table you go to. So I think that something has it out for me, or something's using these groups to teach me lessons, because I've definitely seen a lot of weird groups where I've learned a lot of weird things and gotten used and out of my comfort zone by trying to be with these groups. So that's good at least. But anyway, those were my first 2 group stories. I am sure there will be more because this happens so often. But that's it for now. If there's any weird groups that you've ever been in, or weird people that you've been put into a group with, let me know in the comments below. And I hope that you all, depending on your group, and even regardless of your group, I hope you all still manage to have a great day.